Okay, so we've been learning about the different tefillos, the tefillas Havinenu, and we also had this other prayer, tefillah. It's similar to Havinenu. It's Me'ein Shmona Esrei, and we spoke about if the person made a mistake of a Chodesh, about repeating Shmona Esrei, and what is considered to finish davening. At what point are you done davening? In a sense that you would need to repeat the Shemona Esrei if you missed Rosh Chodesh, and at what point are you still considered in the middle of davening and you just go back a few paragraphs, a few pages, but you don't have to start all over. And we had two opinions in the Gemara, and we spoke about it on Friday, that if you haven't taken your steps back and you're still in the middle of that paragraph that's after, as long as you're still in the middle of that paragraph, that comes after the end of the bracha, Hamavarech Sama Yisrael Bashalom, you're still in the middle of Shemona Esrei, you can really go back and make up the Ya'alav V'Yaveh that you missed. So again, for Rosh Chodesh or for holidays, there is a small gap of time that you have to be able to make up what you missed. As long as you didn't finish the Shemona Esrei fully and you didn't take finish that paragraph after the Shemona Esrei. So then the Gemara mentioned, and this is what we also did on Friday, we mentioned that there's a statement that says if you make your tefillah a keva, an established tefillah, your prayer will not be tachanunim, will not be merciful. And we tried to figure out, and the Gemara came up with a number of explanations of what that means. It was basically emphasizing that there are different ways of davening, and if you do it the wrong way, it's not a good supplication. So the first understanding of that statement was, if you daven in a way that it's like a burden on you. The second explanation is that you said it in a way, you said the words that you said words that you didn't say it with words of supplication. And the third way was that you didn't add anything new. If you didn't add anything new, in other words, some new intent in your prayer, so it's considered like it's you just did it daily, the same exact thing that you did every day by rote. Considered you did it by rote. Now, then Rabbi Zera said, I could add something, but I'm afraid that I'll could get confused. So he was nervous to add something. It implies that maybe he meant to actually verbalize something, and that's where he was nervous. Without having a siddur, they didn't have prayer books, so he was nervous that he would get confused. So it sounds like the previous opinion was that they meant that you would actually say this addition in, and that's important to do, to add something in words. And it would be permissible to do such a thing in the bracha of Shemei Tefillah and the Shemona Esrei. There is a place where you could add something out of personal request. Now, then the Gemara said that the final understanding of what it means that you're davening that keva, you're davening in a automatic way, and it's not going to be a supplication. The final explanation was that you daven with the redness of the sun. If you daven with the redness of the sun, which meant that if you didn't daven with the redness of the sun, then it's considered that your davening is not a supplication. But if you daven with the redness of the sun, that shows that you're excited to do the mitzvah in the most unique and special way, and that's very special for davening. So what that means is that in the morning at sunrise, people daven it exactly at sunrise. That's a special time. That's with the redness of the sun. And then people daven at night, mincha, right when the sun is setting. So that's also with the redness of the sun. But then the Gemara says, but in the west, which means in Eretz Yisrael, they would curse someone who davened with the daven mincha late, because once in a while you're going to end up missing it. you'll end up losing mincha because you push it off till the last moment. In the morning, the redness of the sun is the earliest time to daven. It's an early time to daven. So you have a lot of time afterwards if you miss it. In the afternoon, if you push it off till the last moment, you might end up missing it. Better don't daven in mincha exactly at the end, the last moment. So that's the Gemara that we learned on Friday. We're up to the next Gemara. The next Gemara tells us, it talks about when a person goes in a dangerous area, he should recite a tefillah kitzara, a short prayer. And this is based on the Mishnah that we learned on page 28b. The Mishnah had said that Rabbi Yeshua says if a person goes in a makam sakana, a person goes in a dangerous place, he prays a short prayer, and the words are Haisha Hashem es amcha, Hashem save your nation, as Eretz Yisrael, the remnants of Israel, b'chol parshas ha'ibur. And the Gemara is going to try to figure out what does this mean, parshas ha'ibur. B'chol parshas ha'ibur yirtzochem lefanecha. Whenever they're in this moment, this place of Parshas Ibr, their needs should be fulfilled by you. They should be before you, and that you should see what they need, that you should be able to fulfill their needs. Their needs should be before you. Blessed are you, Hashem, Shemea Tefillah, who listens to prayers. So that's this prayer that a person is supposed to recite in a makom sakana, in a place when they're in danger. Now, this is not tfilas haderech. This is not when you go on the way. When you go on the way, when you're traveling, the traveler prayer, that is a different prayer. That's when you're not going necessarily in a dangerous place. You're traveling. And it could be that there could be a danger, it could not be. But this prayer is when someone didn't daven yet, and they're going in a makam sakana, so they would pray this prayer. Now the Gemara is going to discuss what does it mean, parshas ha'ibur. Whenever a person is in a dangerous place or a situation, their needs should be before you, Hashem. That's the verse. That's the statement. And so the Gemara says that Rabbi Yeshua Omer, we're going to start here 20 lines up from the bottom of the page at the two dots. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Rabbi Yeshua said, yes.
It says Gimel.
I don't have that. That would be in the Steinsaltz. But it's a new paragraph. So Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Rabbi Yeshua says, Hamahalech b'makom sakana, if a person goes in a place that's dangerous, Mispalel tefillah kitzara, he should daven a short prayer. B'chol parashas ha'ibur, and whenever parashas ha'ibur is, our needs should be before you, Hashem. My parashas ha'ibur. So what does this mean, parashas ha'ibur? So Amar Rav Chizda Mar Ukva. Rav Chizda says in the name of Mar Ukva that what does this mean? Afilu b'shah she'ata mismali aleim evra. Even when you are angry, you are filled with anger against the Jewish people, ki isha ubra, like a pregnant woman. Even so, yiu kol tzarcheihem lefanecha, all of their needs should be before you, Hashem. You should realize their needs. In other words, and have mercy on them. They should be revealed before you. You should have it clear in front of you that you would have mercy on them. That's the first explanation. So even if you're so filled with anger, their needs should be before you. You should have mercy and give them what they need. Ika diamri, and some say Amar Rav Chizda Amar Mar Ukva, that Rav Chizda said the name of Mar Ukva a little differently, slightly different. Afilu b'shah shehem oivrin al divrei Torah. Even at a time when they are transgressing the words of Torah, yiyut kol tzarcheihem lefanecha, their needs should be before you, revealed before you. And so we're translating the word ibur, two options. The first way is translating Ibor as pregnant. The second way is translating Ibor as transgress. And so what we're saying is that either when your anger is filled like a pregnant woman, or their sins, they've transgressed. Nevertheless, Hashem, we beg you to have mercy on us. So that's the person who goes in a Makom Sakana, recites this prayer. And the way it seems like from Shulchan Aruch is that if a person did not daven yet, and they're not going to be able to daven because they're going through this type of place, so they should recite this prayer. And it doesn't actually count as a full-fledged davening, because what happens is if they end up arriving at a place where they could daven before the time of the end of davening, the end time of davening arrives, they will have to daven the regular davening afterwards. So this is sort of like just a temporarily accepted, it's a temporary prayer. And if they don't end up arriving in a safe place and it already the time to daven ends, they would be obligated to daven twice the next prayer. So this prayer is not covering their obligation to daven, but it is considered like a temporary prayer in the meantime that they should do. And that's the understanding. Now the Gemara continues, and it says, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis learned, Hamahalech b'makom gedudei chaya. If a person goes in a place of where there are animals, gedudei chaya, like legions of animals, ballistim, and robbers, armed robbers, mispalel tefillah kitzara. He should daven a tefillah kitzara. And in this brisa, it says, what is this short? Kitzara means short. What does it mean? What is a short prayer? Rabbi Eliezer says, do your will in the heavens above, and and give a pleasantness of spirit to those that fear you, mitachas, below, from below. And do what is good in your eyes, because you know what's really good. We don't always know. We think this would be good if we got this, if we had this, if this worked out, but we don't really know. Do what's good in your eyes. Baruch Atu Hashem Shemei Tefillah. Blessed are you, Hashem, who listens to the prayer. So here it's a slightly different version than the version that we said in the Mishnah. This is a brisa, the Tosefta. Now the yes.
How does this the short prayer and all that fit in with we're not supposed to put ourselves in any danger?
So what it seems like is that although a person is supposed to guard themselves and not do anything that's dangerous, but there are times when you end up like travel in the olden days. If you needed to for Parnasa, you were allowed to travel, even though travel was somewhat dangerous. And because of that, of course, they would recite a Tfilas Haderech, the prayer, traveler's prayer, and so on. But the idea that a person is not allowed to go and do something that's dangerous is generally when it's a definite danger, and there might be room for leniency for if a person's business involves somewhat of a danger. Of course, there's different levels of danger, but this also could apply if a person is in a place of danger and it's too late. By mistake, they took a wrong turn, and they ended up going through a dangerous neighborhood. So your question is a good question. How does it end up that people would be in a dangerous place if you're not allowed to do things that could be dangerous for yourself. So we'd have to look up to what extent it's allowed, for business purposes, because we do know that in the olden days, a lot of people were in the business were in business that involved traveling. They had to travel to different places, and yet it was dangerous going through the fields and in the winter and so on. And travel was always dangerous, and yet to the extent that there is there's an interesting law regarding yontiv, that if a person travels with their wife to Israel, let's say, in the olden days, so we encourage them to, we tell them that they should, at least according to the Radvaz, I think this is a Radvaz, he says that if they travel, let's say, to Israel and for yontiv in the olden days, consider yourself as if you live in Israel, because it's so dangerous to travel. Good chance you're going to end up staying there, or if you traveled from Israel outside to the diaspora, consider yourself as if you live there, because if you go with your wife, there's a good chance that that's wherever you are, you're going to stay, because it's so dangerous to travel. Nowadays, that wouldn't necessarily apply, but there was such an opinion that was based on the fact that if a person travels with their spouse, that would be what the holiday, either a 1-day holiday or a 2-day holiday, depended on. And it had to do with the fact that travel was dangerous. And so if you went somewhere with your spouse and you took the trip to travel somewhere so far, we assume you live here because there is a chance that this is where you're going to end up living. But anyway, so it's a good question. It deserves to be looked into. It would be, there are chapters in Shulchan Aruch called the laws of Shmiras HaNefesh VeHaguf. So I'd have to look it up there and see what it says in that chapter of what the circumstances are that would permit someone to do, for dangerous to enter into a dangerous area. But one of the reasons why charity is considered such a special mitzvah is also connected to this, because a person risks their life in order to make a living, and then they give that money to charity. They're giving away, they're somewhat giving away their life, in addition to the fact that they might need it at some point for sustenance, but they work so hard. They do things that are dangerous. For example, they get less sleep. They don't, they deprive themselves of sleep to make a living, and they travel, go into dangerous areas, and yet they go and give that money. From that money they give to charity. That's what makes charity one of the biggest mitzvahs, and it's considered a mitzvah rabbah, because they might, it's like on the border of danger. That money is, they could need it, and yet they're giving it away. It's on the border of endangering their life, so to speak. Yes. So anyway, I'll try to look it up. Yes, Ben.
I wanted to say we have to remember that in these days, the landscape was different. There was a lot of forest, a lot of wild animals. In addition to human danger, there was a lot of danger. The roads were not good, there were dirt roads. So when you traveled, you were always in danger.
Right.
Even in Europe, I know that from family stories, they were always traveling in the forest.
Right.
From place to place. So it was always dangerous.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Susan, your hand has been up.
My parents told me that never, when I got married and we have children, never to go on an airplane together, that it's that if something should happen, that
there should be there should be a future for the family. Right.
Right.
Well, it's the typical Yiddish mama that's always
so
nervous.
That's exactly what I thought.
Terrible thing will happen.
Yeah.
And, don't never give your name out to anyone.
Exactly.
They might kidnap you. God forbid.
Exactly. Don't wear a name tag.
No names. Right. Anyway.
Okay.
Rabbi.
Yes, Double.
Also, for many years, just the idea of going outside at nighttime was considered dangerous, because that's when the robbers would come out and the wild animals would come out.
Right. right, right.
That's very true.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. So,
So
so
if,
we
a per- so if
basically,
Avram is wondering how does a person put himself in a dangerous situation, just coming home from davening Marv and Shul at nighttime is a dangerous
Oh.
situation because it's nighttime.
in those days,
Yeah. This is
Right,
one of the
right,
reasons
right,
we
right.
say Borchu again on Friday night to catch all the late comers so that they have somebody to walk home with.
right, right. To add a little to the prayer, so that
That also
that,
applies
people-
to today, because when I lived in Atlanta, we're next to a very bad crime area, and I used to go to shul with a pepper spray and come
Uh-huh.
back on a Friday evening with a pepper spray, because some people were getting beaten up.
wow.
There was always somebody getting Jewish getting beaten up, or sukkah being destroyed, or
Wow.
being beaten up. So it can still relate to that.
Right. So, but the question would be, I mean, you have to know where to draw the line, because at some point, if it is dangerous, then you should not really be going to shul. So there must be a certain limit as to what is considered dangerous and what isn't. If it really is dangerous, then of course a person's life takes precedence over fulfilling all the mitzvahs except the top three. So that would be something to take into consideration of is it a danger of life? Is it a danger of being beaten up? Is it is it life threatening, and so on, these type of things. But in any event, it's a good question, and the same thing would apply to business. To what extent are you allowed to go on a business trip that's dangerous? Like if you have business in Afghanistan, there's you have a good invention that you think would be beneficial. Would you be allowed to travel there if you wanted to, or would that be against halacha because it's so dangerous? So that would be something that would have to be looked into. Now, can you just go there and say, "Oh, I'll recite this prayer"? I don't think so. You can't just go there and say, "Oh, I'm going to say this prayer that we just learned. It's a makam sakana." Yeah, we all set. There is somewhere to draw the line where it's where what's considered danger and what's not, and what percent is it. There might be a percentage of and if it's just a question of danger of let's say it's not life or death, but it could be something else. So these are things that I'd have to look up in Shulchan Aruch what it mentions, but it is a good question. Yes, Isaac.
I just remember many years ago in the Catskills one summer, I had done a magic show at a different camp, and we were coming back, and somebody was commenting, you're saying Tfilas Derech or something, and somebody said, it's silly. We say Tfilas Derech, and we say, Chayos Rose. Where today, when you're driving around, do you have Chayos Rose?
Mm-hmm.
And a minute later, we hit a deer.
Wow. Wow. Was the car total? Was the car total?
No, we were okay.
Uh-huh.
Whatever. Uh-huh. Yeah, the car couldn't drive anymore, but then,
Wow.
Right. Saying you laugh and you joke about certain words. What do you have Chayos Rose today on a highway? Yeah.
Right.
In Wisconsin, you haven't.
Right. Hashem answered your question, the question that was asked. Yes.
In New York, you have them on the subway.
So this is the small prayer that that Rabbi Eliezer said, that do your will in the heavens above, and give nachas ruach to those that fear you below. And I saw one of the commentaries mentions, do your will in the heavens above means you could follow your strict judgment when it comes to the angels. In the heavens above, do your will, follow your strict judgment, because the angels don't sin anyway. But when it comes down here, Give nachas ruach to those that fear you and do what's good in your eyes, what's really good for us. And blessed are you, Hashem, Shemei Tefillah, listens to the prayers. So that's a little understanding of what it means. That in heaven, that's where you can follow the strict judgment. The next opinion, Rabbi Yeshua says, Shema Shabbos Amcha Yisrael, listen to the cry of your nation Israel, and quickly fulfill their request. Baruch Hashem Shemet Tefillah, blessed are you Hashem, who listens to the prayers. Rabbi Elazar B'Reb Tzadok Mishmat Tzachas Amcha Yisrael. Rabbi Elazar B'Reb Tzadok said a little different version. Listen to the cry of your nation Israel. And so instead of Shavas, he says Tzakas. The difference is either Shavas or Tzakas. This one he uses a stronger term, Tzakas, the cry. And in English, they both mean cry, really. But in Hebrew,
is scream.
Which one is worse, do you think, Ben? Shavat or Tzakat?
I think tzaka is a loud
Stronger.
call, you know.
Yeah, stronger. So that was Rabbi Elazar B'Reb Tzadok's language, is Tzakat. And do fulfill their will very quickly, their request quickly. Baruch Hashem Shemet Tefillah, blessed are Hashem, who listens to the prayer. Others say this is called Tefillah Ketzara. Tzarechei Amcha Yisrael Merubin. The needs of your nation Israel is a lot. V'daitam Ketzara, and their understanding, their knowledge, they don't know how to explain themselves. Their knowledge is very short, is small. They don't know how to explain their needs to you. May it be your will, Hashem, our God, that you should give to every person the amount of his sustenance, and to every creation, any of its need and whatever it needs. And Baruch Hashem, Shemet Tefillah, blessed are you, Hashem, who listens to prayer. Amar Rav Huna halacha kachim. Rav Huna says the halacha follows this term. So that is what Tefillah Ketzara is. And so back to the Mishnah had said that if a person is in a place of sakana, they should say this. They should say a Tefillah Ketzara. And the Gemara says the halacha is that the Tefillah Ketzara is the correct version of it. Rubim tzarchei amcha. Now,
Rabbi.
Yes.
Acherim, is that the actual person as
right.
opposed to entire group? Is it?
No, acherim generally means Reb Meir, and I'm not sure if they bring it down here, but generally he was given the term acherim.
Probably unnamed others.
But I don't see it mentioned here. Let's see if I have this Gemara here that's often adds in a lot of insights. It's called the Masifta Shas.
In the Steinsaltz, that word ahiram is boldface and italic.
Does it say the name? Generally, achirim is Reb Meir, but it's interesting. They don't seem to mention it. So, in any event, the halacha follows this opinion, and that would be the prayer that one would recite. And the Gemara says, Amalei Eliyahu Rav Yehuda. Eliyahu told Rav Yehuda, Achuha de Rav Salah Hasida, the brother of Rav Salah Hasida. So he told him that, what did he tell him? Loi sirsach, sirtach, v'loi sechti. Don't get angry and you won't sin. Because when a person gets angry, that leads to sin. Loi tirvi, don't drink and get drunk, v'loi sechati, and don't sin, and you won't sin. So these are two things that cause someone to sin. If they get angry and if they drink. When you go on the way, he said, "Himalech b'koinech." Take check with your creator if you should be traveling. So when you're about to travel, you should check with your creator if you should travel. Himalech, check with him. B'koinech, with your creator, but say and then go. My himalech b'koinech. So what does this mean? You check with your creator. How do you do that? Amar Reb Yaakov, Amar Rav Chisda, Zut Tfilas Haderech. So Reb Yaakov, in the name of Rav Chisda, says this is Tfilas Haderech. And so what this means is very interesting, that when you say Tfilas Haderech, what you're really doing is asking Hashem if you should go. You're checking with Hashem if this is okay. Himalech means to check with him. So you're asking Hashem if you should go. In fact, the Shalach HaKadosh writes that if the prayer, Tfilas Haderech, comes smooth, if you say it smooth, then it means you're supposed to go. If you stutter and make a mistake in it, then it means you really shouldn't be traveling. Now, I don't know anyone that follows that, that maybe we're not on the level to know if it, but it is interesting that in the Gemara, it implies like it's more of a checking with Hashem if Hashem wants you to go. And that's what the Tfilas Haderech is. It's a question that you're asking Hashem, should I travel? Yes, Ben.
I'm surprised they're using the word gviya v'gviya. Gviya is corpse, but they probably just mean the body.
It is a term used. I don't know when specifically it uses the word gviya. It's not like it never uses that term. I
see it the first time, but you see it many times.
Well,
the meaning is corpse.
Right, okay.
But I
like,
think
why does it's a good question. Why does it say give every individual their parnasa, and every gaviyah, which is like I translate it as creation, but you're right, it really literally means body, every body, your corpse.
Yeah,
give it what it needs.
That's
yeah,
what I thought.
But would I'm wondering if that would include would it include animals? A gaviyah?
No.
Uh-huh.
Nevela, an animal is a nevela.
No, but what about when it's alive? A nevela is when it's dead. What about when it's alive?
Right. When
Would
it's
it be
alive,
called a
it's a
gaviyah?
body. Goof.
Would the body be called a gaviyah also or not?
No.
It is interesting. Why did they divide it? I think that's a good question. What is the meaning of dividing that up into two things?
Can I ask a question? When
Yes.
saying that a
Yes.
word means corpse and not just plain body?
No, it means a body. It doesn't mean a corpse. It means a.
The translation is corpse, but it means body here.
It means body. We're not giving the corpses whatever they need. We're giving the people who are alive.
Right.
But it divides it up, because it first talks about parnasa, and parnasa is, of course, includes the sustenance and needs of a person, and then it says to every gviya de machseira. So I would have translated maybe to mean including animals, that God should give the whole world everything that it needs. So every person should have their parnasa, and every gviya should have, or maybe it includes the goyim, that Hashem should give them what they need. I'm not sure. Maybe in the back. Let me see 29b.
Rabbi, I don't know if you emphasized this, but this is Eliyahu Hanavi. Did you say that?
Talking about traveling.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Eliyahu
Yeah,
Hanavi appeared to Rabbi Yehuda.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Let's see here. So the Bach
I see-
explains.
Rabbi, I see I think it's the Steinsaltz, next to Gevia, in parentheses, he has goof.
Right. Okay. But it's still surprising. Why does it divide it?
Yeah. Because the body has different needs than the person might have other needs than just financial needs, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but why can't it just say l'chol echad b'echad? Why does it? Oh, so one is the person's mind, and the other is the person's body.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So one's like more physical, and one is more
Yeah.
emotional, mental.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's more. One is physical. One's mental. Give yeah. Parnasasa is more like the emotional sustenance and well, I don't know. Parnasa, I would think definitely means
Family, it's
food.
for the whole family, really. Gvia is the goof.
So l'chol echad would mean that the head of the household. Give every head of the household his parnasa, and chol gvia, each body should have what it needs. Each person individually. Is that what you're thinking? Every person means every house.
On the way, the body has their needs too.
Yeah, but parnasa also is a physical thing. It is. I don't know. It's an interesting question why it divides it up. Okay. Well, we got to continue. So to be thought about. What we'll have to do is look at the other places in the prayers whenever we say gvia.
Oh, okay.
And find those places, and maybe we could be able to compare the two.
You think it could be a typo? A typographical?
No, that's not a good answer.
Now, Steinsaltz has in parentheses goof.
You know, there's a joke that someone went to heaven and they found the Rambam in heaven. They found Maimonides and they said, oh, I've been wondering this question for so long. There's a contradiction in what you wrote. You know, in the Rambam, there's numerous places where you need to explain because it seems contradictory in Maimonides. So he goes to the Rambam and says, I found this contradiction. I'm so happy that I'm seeing you here in heaven. Please explain to me the answer to this contradiction. One place you wrote one thing, one place the other. So the Rambam says, oh, it's a mistake. One of them is a mistake. So the rabbi who's asking says, that's how you answer a Rambam? You're just claiming it's a mistake? You think you can get away with it to just saying it's a mistake? No way. Anyway, in Yiddish it sounds better.
It's still funny in English.
Anyway, so no, it's not a mistake. We're going to have to look up where it says Guvia in prayers. We'll do a search and we'll find Guvia in prayers and see what it specifically refers to, and maybe that'll help us. Okay.
I know there is somewhere it says Gvia T, but I don't remember which.
Yeah, there are some places. We have to search it. Okay. The Gemara says here, so we're mentioning it as David just emphasized. Eliyahu is not a Rabbi Eliyahu. This is Eliyahu Hanavi, and he told Rabbi Yehuda, the brother of Rav Salah Hasidah, he said these things about not to get angry, not to get drunk, and when you go on the way, you got to ask. You should ask your Creator, and then go. What does it mean? Himalech. What does it mean? Himalech b'koinech. So he says this is Tfilas Haderach, the prayer on the traveler's prayer. V'amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rav Chisda, Kol hayitzeh laderech tzarich l'spal tfilas haderech. Whoever goes on the way should daven tfilas haderech. My tfilas haderech. What is the traveler's prayer? So here it has the traveler's prayer. Yehi ratzon milvanecha Hashem Elokai. May it be your will, Hashem, my God, that you should take me in peace, and make my steps, set my steps in peace. You should lead me, I should be supported in peace. And you should save me, mikaf, kol oyev v'oyrev, from the palm of any oyev, enemy, and oyrev, ambusher, baderech, on the way. V'tishach bracha b'maaseh yadai, you should send blessing in the work of my hand. V'zedneni l'cheinu l'chesed o l'rachamim, and you should give me for grace and kindness and mercifulness in the eyes, be'inecha, in your eyes, u'be'ini kol royai, in the eyes of anyone that sees me. Baruch atah Hashem shemet tefillah, blessed are you, Hashem, who listens to the prayer. Now, Amar Abaye says that that's not exactly the right version. Really, li'olam, always, lishatef adam nafshe, a person should include themselves, bahadei tzibura, with the congregation, with the community, with the congregation. And therefore, you shouldn't just say a personal prayer in a singular, you should say it in the plural. In this way, your prayer will be more listened to. So Vehechi Naaman, how should we say it? Now we're on page 30A, by the way. If those that didn't turn the page, we're on the top of 30A.
Yeah.
So Lishatif and Nafshi Bhadi Tzibura, a person should include themselves, should partner themselves with the Tzibur, with the congregation. Hechi Nema, how should he say it? So how do you say it in the plural? Yehi ratzain milfanecha Hashem Elokeinu. May it be your will, Hashem, our God, not just my God, but our God. Shetelicheinu l'shalom. That you should take me in peace, v'chulu, etc. Similar to what we said before, just do instead of a nun yud at the end, do a nun vav. So instead of it being singular, it'll be plural. Emas matzmi. Then the Gemara asks, so when do you say this prayer? So, Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rav Chisda, Misha shemahalach baderech. From the time that you leave on the way, Ad kama. Ad kama, there are different explanations what this question is. Rashi's explanation initially is, his first explanation is, until when can you say this prayer? And the Gemara answers, Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rav Chisda, ad parsa. Rabbi Yaakov says, in the name of Rav Chisda, you can recite it until you travel a parsa. A parsa is 4 mil. A mil is 2,000 amos, 2,000 cubits. So 4 of those would be 8,000 cubits, which would be approximately 16,000 feet on the higher end, or maybe about 12,000 feet lower. Different opinions of how big it is, but basically a few miles. That would be until when you could recite this prayer. What does that mean? After you travel a few miles, you can't recite the prayer? The answer is, according to this opinion, yes. Yeah, that's right. You wouldn't, at least one way of learning this opinion is that because if you're asking Hashem if you should be traveling, so don't ask him after you travel already.
Right.
You got to ask him when you're starting. If you're really asking Hashem for permission to travel, so you got to ask him when you're starting out. You can't ask him after you're already halfway there. You already did the travel. You already, you already took the. It's like you decided without asking him. So now you're asking him. So therefore, according to this way of learning, you would have to ask before you travel the 3 miles. But that's not the halacha. But that's the Rashi's translation. Then Rashi brings the Bahag, and the halachis gedolos in the Bahag. He says that until when, how much of a travel does it have to be for you to recite this prayer? So the travel should be a parsa travel. Now, it's not asking until when can you recite this prayer, but it's asking how far of a travel should it be that you would, how far of a travel would it be that would necessitate such a prayer? And the Gemara answers on Parsa that it should be a travel that's a travel of a Parsa of these, 8,000 amos, which is, somewhere between 12,000 and 16,000 feet. So that's how far the travel should be.
About a mile and a quarter.
No,
I think close
not
to 2.5.
16,000 feet.
I think it's like 2.5 miles.
16,000 feet is like 3 miles.
But
A
the
mile
thing
is
is,
1,500 meter, I think.
Right, but it's 5,280 feet exactly. So if you triple that, that's almost 15,800.
Right.
16,000, so 3 miles.
yes,
Sure.
yeah, correct. Thank you. So that's 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 one way of calculating it. Now the other option is to calculate it by time, and by time, it takes how long does it take to walk a parsa? So a mil takes 18 minutes to travel. So a parsa takes 72 minutes. So how long of a trip would you need to take in order to be obligated to recite Tfilas HaDerech? It will be 72 minutes. And until when would you be able to recite this prayer? As long as you haven't traveled more, according to Rashi's explanation, as long as you didn't pass 72 minutes, you're still in the beginning of your trip. So does parsa mean a specific amount of place, or is it the amount of time? Is it the amount of time that it takes to travel a parsa? So I think the general accepted understanding is that it's the amount of time that it would take, and therefore it wouldn't be the specifically that amount of measurement, but it would be the amount of time it would take to walk that measurement, and that would be so what would come out would be that you would have 72 minutes that you should recite Tfilas HaDerech to follow Rashi. You would recite Tfilas HaDerech within the first 72 minutes of your travel. And according to the other opinion, you would have to have a travel that's at least a 72-minute travel to be obligated and to recite Tfilas HaDerech. So now the Gemara says, Vehechi matzli lo. How do you recite it? How do you daven this? How do you request it? So Rav Chizda Amar Mu'umad. Rav Chizda says you recite it standing. It either means standing or it means stopping. What does the Steinsaltz say, Mu'umad? Does it say standing or does it say stopped, not traveling? There's
Standing in one place.
Standing in one place. Standing in one place. Mu'umad could mean two things. When a person there's going, and then there's oimed means to stop. Oimed could also mean to stand. And so the halacha about Tfilas HaDerech is, of course, it's best to stop traveling, and it's even best to stand when you say it. But of course, if a person is late and so on, they are allowed to recite it when you're traveling, which we'll see now is a machlokes in the Gemara here. Amar Rav Chizda, I'm sorry, Vehechi matzli lo. So Rav Chizda Amar Mu'umad. Rav Chizda says Mu'umad, standing or stopping in one place, or both standing and stop. Rav Sheshes Amar Afilu Mahalach. Rav Sheshes says even if you're going, you could recite it while you're going. Rav Chizda and Rav Sheshes have a ka'azli b'orcha. Now, if they were both traveling together, and Rav Sheshes was blind, so it says they were going together on the way. Come Rav Chizda v'kamatzli. Rav Chizda got up and he davened. He said this prayer. Amalei Rav Sheshes l'shamei. Rav Sheshes told his aide, his shamish. He says, "My call Ovid Rav Chizda. What's Rav Chizda doing? Because he couldn't see." So Amarle Kayumatzli, he stood up and he's davening. Amarle Ukman Nami Lididi, stand me up also, Va'atzli, and I will daven. Mi Yois Toiv al Tikra Ra. And this is like a saying. It's not a verse, but it's a saying. Mi Yois Toiv, from being good, I shouldn't be called bad. If I could be extra good, why not? Meaning, I don't, I hold you don't have to stop. And you don't have to stand up to say Tfilas HaDerech, but if I could do better and stop and stand up to recite this prayer, I ought to do that. So Rav Sheshus also stopped. What we see here is he holds you don't have to. And that's what we mentioned earlier. Rav Sheshus said, even Mahalik. And this is a story that shows that really you could go, and Rav Sheshus held that way. But when it came an option for him to stop, he did stop. If Rav Chizda anyway stopped, he said, let me stop and stand up and say it. So Tosfos over here says that the Kaimalon Rav Sheshus. Tosfos says we hold like Rav Sheshus. You could recite it even when you're traveling. And then he brings from the Rif and others that Rav Chizda is better to follow Rav Chizda. You should follow Rav Chizda. That you should stop. So in Shulchan Aruch, of course, it's better to stop, but unless they're not going to wait for you or you can't. So, then you could recite it even traveling. Now the Gemara asks, we're now at about 10 lines down from the top of the page, and the Gemara says, "My ika bein havinenu letfila katsara." What is the difference in halacha between havinenu and tefillah katsara? So we mentioned that there are short tefillahs. And one of them we said was a tefillah when you're going in a dangerous place, and you should say tefillah katsara. And the other was also like a leniency if you can't concentrate fully. So both seem to be cases where you can't really daven, but you're going to be davening a shorter davening. Havinenu is so what's the difference are there any differences in halacha? So the Gemara says, what is the difference? Havinenu, first of all, you need the first three blessings of the Shemoneh Esrei and the last three blessings of Shemoneh Esrei. And when you reach home, when you arrive home, you don't have to go back and daven again because you davened. Your davening was a shorter davening, but it summarized all of the 18 blessings or 19 blessings of Shemoneh Esrei, and therefore you have fulfilled your obligation. And therefore, you don't have to daven again. The Tefillah Ketzara, in the Tefillah Ketzara that we mentioned, all these different opinions of exactly how to say it. Tefillah Ketzara, for that prayer, you don't have to daven. Not the, you don't have to daven. I just lost the place. But Tefillah Ketzara, you don't have to daven not the first three and not the last three blessings. So it's really short. And when you come to your house, you're going to have to go back and daven because you really did not fulfill your obligation to the extent that because you didn't daven Shemoneh Esrei, you didn't daven 18 brachos, to the extent that if you come back home late and it's too late to daven, you should daven two of the next prayers. Daven two. If you miss mincha, daven two ma'ariv. You miss shachris, daven two minchas. You should daven. It's really not like you daven. And v'hilchasa and the halacha is havinenu mu'umad. Havinenu should be recited standing. Tefillah Ketzara bein mu'umad bein mahalif. Tefillah Ketzara could be recited whether standing and whether traveling. And that's the law with Tefillah Ketzara. And of course, Tefillah Ketzara, you're in a dangerous place. So the halacha is you could recite it even when you're traveling. Okay. That's it. Okay, I think we'll stop here. It's 11 o'clock. Have a wonderful day, everyone. We'll see you later. That's Hashem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Safe,
Okay,
everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Like-
Thank you, Rabbi.